Well,
welcome.
hello, good afternoon and good evening, everyone. I'm Tosca Lee, and I'm one of the Rogue Women writers. We are a group of 9 thriller writers whose backgrounds range from intelligence officer to journalist to crime scene analyst to special investigators, hostage negotiators, psychotherapists, international consultants to White House strategists. A
Wow.
quick orientation, there is a chat room on the side of the screen. So if you click the chat icon, you'll see that. Participants and special guests, please feel free to go ahead and introduce yourself with a quick comment in the chat bar. We'd love to know where you're joining us from. For those of you joining us on Facebook Live, please be sure to say hello and leave a comment if you have anything that you'd like to tell these, and especially if you have a question you'd like to ask. So please be sure and add those questions, and we'll do our best to try to accommodate them all. We're in for a big treat as the authors tonight will be reading from their newest work, sharing a few of their favorite treats, and maybe even a few behind the scenes secrets. All of the books discussed here tonight should be available to buy or pre-order through your local bookstore. Please be sure to grab or order a copy. Support your local booksellers and also check out our guests' previous work, which is a lot of books to choose from. So your TBR pile will be full. Let's all use hashtags, hashtag Rogue Reads and Rogue Women Writers, as we post about our experiences with these authors and their works. Also, you can go rogue with us. If you want to learn more about our upcoming programs or our newsletter, you can go to the Rogue Women Writers website. We also have a quadruple book giveaway tonight. We're giving away 4 books. The new books by our guest authors, The Fairest by Jenny Milchman, Murdered by the Millions by DARYL Wood Gerber, Lost in the Garden of Eve by Elle Devine, The Gallery Assistant by Kate BELLI. Winners are chosen from our registered attendees and will be notified a few days after our event via email, so keep your eyes on your inboxes. As I said, my name is Tosca Lee. I'm an author of 12 novels, most recently The Long March Home. I hope you'll be sure to check that one out if you haven't. And I'm coming to you tonight from Nebraska, and I'm thrilled to be emceeing this event. So I'm going to introduce our 4 authors. As I do, please feel free to post your questions at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can. So let's get to it. First off, our own rogue woman writer, Jenny Milchman, is the Mary Higgins Clark award-winning and #1 Amazon chart-topping author of 6 novels. Her work has been praised by the New York Times, San Francisco Journal of Books, and many more, earned best of spots on Pure Wow, Pop Sugar, The Strand, Suspense, and Big Thrill magazines, and received starred reviews from Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, Booklist, all the places. Starred reviews from all the places. 4 of her novels have been Indie Next Picks. And Jenny's short fiction has appeared in anthologies as well as Ellery Queen Mystery Magazine, and a piece on book touring appeared in the Agatha award-winning collection Promophobia. Her current series features Arl Shepard, a psychologist who has the power to save the most troubled and vulnerable children, but must battle demons of her own to do it. The Fairest released September 16th. It is the second in her Arl Shepard thriller series, the first book of which is The Usual Silence. And if you haven't read The Usual Silence, Book Reporter says The Usual Silence will frighten, shock, and uplift anyone who reads it, and shows Milchman at the top of her game. And a current reader of her new one, The Fairest, says it is a wild blend of action, drama, twist, culture, and wilderness that is thought-provoking, and I couldn't put it down. It is a must-read. Wow! Exclamation mark. So Jenny, welcome.
Hard hands for finding that review.
Yes,
Reviewer.
it's right at the top. It was easy to find. So please tell us about The Fairest.
Well, as you said, Tosca, thank you for that great introduction, first of all. But as you said, Arl Shepard is a psychologist, and she has a trauma in her background, and it has driven her to save any child who comes into her orbit. And unfortunately, there are a lot of children who need saving, and Arl's, basically stops at nothing to do so. When I thought of the series, I thought of her as like the Reacher of child saving. I should be
Mhm.
so lucky. But you know what I mean. She, every story so far has been a justice play where children are involved.
Mhm. How did the idea for this series come to you? Where did it start? Where did it come from?
Well, I'm glad you asked, because when I thought of the series, I thought to myself, that's really not fair, because I didn't. What happened is my publisher at Thomas and Mercer contacted my agent and asked if I, would join her for breakfast. She had an idea she wanted to discuss, and she said, you know, they've read my other work, and had I ever considered putting my psychotherapy background to work in a series? And that's where the idea came from. It wouldn't have occurred to me, but it was such a spark from above when she said that. Then all of a sudden, Arl's just kind of appeared full form, and yeah, I thought, that is a great kind of procedural, right? Because a lot of us have experience with psychotherapy, or we've been in psychotherapy, or we know somebody, and it was just a way to sort of put these moments of grandeur and transformation in our lives on the page in a thriller format.
Wow. I love that. And isn't that cool when somebody suggests something and it works? So great. Well, will you read to us from the Fairest?
Okay, so in the Arles has a former patient named Kara, who's an author. So I don't know why my picture is so blurry. Up to I didn't do my makeup all the way tonight or something, and it's better this way. Arles Kara is an author, and she's at a book signing for her new release. And Kara writes, and something's going to happen at this book signing that is not your usual. You've got five amazing authors here tonight, including our rogues, actually maybe six. I bet none of us have had this happen to us at a book signing. So here it goes. It was a scene Kara wrote into every one of her books. She was known for it in the mystery world. Children, lost, gone, and taken, entered her plots every time. She'd done the therapy thing, understood why she kept coming back to this topic, like a dog to a buried bone. But insight didn't change the fact that all the many ways in which a child could go missing was a central conceit of her work. She finished reading and let the cover fall shut. The attendees started clapping, a rainfall patter not as roaring as the intrusion from the other bigger event in the bookstore, but still nice to hear. As people got up and assembled themselves into a loose line, Kara offered hellos and scribbled her signature in book after book, mentally counting and feeling her eyebrows rise at the number. Maybe she'd make it onto a bestseller list this time. She cast her gaze down the line, which was finally dwindling. 4 more to go, or was it 5? The row of heads, some higher, some lower, took a sudden sharp dip, like a cityscape with a 3 or 4-story building at the end of a series of skyscrapers. Without looking down, Kara penned her name in the book thrust before her. She used a particularly elegant hand, going slow, so as to make sense of what she was seeing. The last person in line was a child. Kara blinked to make sure she hadn't been fooled by a tiny grown-up, but no. Even though she didn't write children's books, or even young adult, and the scene she just read would have earned the literary equivalent of an R rating for violence, somebody who didn't look old enough to get into a PG-13 movie by herself was shifting from one brightly sneakered foot to another, clutching a copy of Gone Too Soon to her sunken, heaving chest. Her eyes formed wide, frightened ovals. She kept snatching looks around the bookstore. The man standing in front of Kara left with his copy, and the kid sidled forward. She placed her book down open to the right page. But before Kara could sign it, a sale was a sale after all. The Sharpie she held seized in mid-flight, its swooping K arrested. Something had been written in the spot where she usually inked her name. Kara squinted to decipher the words. The excerpt had been basically memorized, but these words were a mystery, and despite being only 34 years old, Kara needed reading glasses already, all those in front of a screen. In blocky, childish letters, the first word under all the message, I am a missing child.
Wow. Wow. Okay, I have to say I've never had that happen.
That's awesome.
All right. I'm going to come back to you, Jenny, and I'm going to move on to Daryl now. But Jenny, I'm not done. I've got more questions for you. So, Daryl, let me introduce Daryl. Daryl Wood Gerber is the Agatha Award-winning, nationally best-selling author of the Fairy Garden Mysteries, featuring a fairy garden shop owner in charming Carmel, California, the French Bistro Mysteries, featuring a former chef who is now an up-and-coming bistro owner in Napa Valley, and the Cookbook Nook Mysteries, featuring an admitted foodie and owner of a cookbook store in picturesque coastal California. Prior to her career as a novelist, Daryl wrote screenplays and created the format for the popular TV sitcom Out of This World. A fun tidbit for mystery buffs. Daryl was also an actress and co-starred on Murder, She Wrote, as well as other TV shows. Was Heart to Heart one of them? Did I read that? Heart to Heart was one. And Daryl is originally from the Bay Area and graduated from Stanford University. She loves to cook, read, golf, swim, and garden. She also likes adventure and has been known to jump out of a perfectly good airplane. Oh, that's like my worst nightmare. Okay. Daryl's newest book is Murder by the Millions, releasing this month, October 28th. It is book number 2 in her literary dining mystery series following Murder on the Page, about which Booklist says Gerber combines the hallmarks of a great cozy mystery, books, baking, and a cat named Darcy in this charming series starter that ends with a few recipes. And an early reader reviewer for Murder by the Millions says, this book hits it out of the park. Daryl, please tell us about Murder by the Millions.
Well, first of all, I need to update my bio on my website if that's where you've got all the information because it's behind. So you just made me have some work tomorrow. Also, I must warn people, this is not a suspense. You can tell by the cover, it's not a suspense novel. I write suspense novels. I put this out in July, Accidental Murder. That's more suspense. That's a computer tech person whose sister dies. This one is a caterer who loves books. And I'll give you just a quick background of it is because you were asking about secrets, and the secret on this is it was started as literary dining mysteries. It was set in Arrowhead, California. And I gave the idea to my publisher and she said, we don't want California. And I said, okay. I said, I spent 9 years in Charlotte. How about Charlotte, North Carolina? And she goes, well, sort of flat. I'm still hoping for mountains. And I said, well, how about Asheville? My nephew lives in Asheville. And she said, that'd be great. So I had to go visit my nephew
Oh,
to learn more about Asheville, and I did a deep dive, and then I was able to ask him questions as I was writing. But and that's part of the secret, that the history of where this came from. I didn't get it from my publisher, Jenny, darn it.
well, tell us more about where the idea for this series did originate.
Well, so when it originated, I wanted a gal that was a caterer. I used to cater as when I was younger, and I wanted her to have this business up in Arrowhead because I live in Los Angeles, and Hollywoodites, everything goes up to the mountains. The mountains are beautiful here. They're lovely and they're remote, and I wanted something where maybe Hollywood could come up and down to the mountains so that there would be an influx of these creative people. And she is a caterer there, and there's a rival caterer, and her best friend was helping her aunt. The aunt owned a bookstore, but she loved this bookstore because she's a book nerd. She just loves books, and the bookstore owner was one of her good friends. When she is killed, which is a sad reveal, but it is in the bio. Her friend Tegan becomes the owner of the bookstore. She gets a part of it. But what they wanted to do to honor this woman, to honor Marigold, her favorite book was Pride and Prejudice. And I decided that each of my books would revolve around a classic book, and they would start putting parties together that would honor these classics. So for that book, my character and me, researched food set in the Regency era. I learned how to make all sorts of trifles. I made white soup. It was great. Hard, long, Takes a long time to make it, but it was wonderful.
What is
Uh,
white soup? Tell us what
White soup is actually in the Pride and Prejudice, and it's just one of the things that they eat. And I've had so many people say, "What is white soup?" And it's chicken and veal boiled down to, their very tenderest moments, and then you add in creams and different, lots of spices. But it's sort of like a cream of mushroom soup with chicken and veal.
Oh,
So,
okay. Yeah.
to bring it down to it's normal, it's a basic thing. Anyway, so then I started researching all the costumes that they wore during the time, and I wanted to understand. I read Pride and Prejudice back to front again so that I could understand really the underpinnings of the book that I hadn't read since I was in high school, and why somebody would love it, because there are a lot of people that love Pride and Prejudice.
Yes, there are.
And when I read it for the second and third time, just to get the feeling of it, I started to understand who she was and why this match between her and Darcy was good. And so I wanted to create that too in my character's life. I want her to have to look for a good man, a man who will challenge her. Someone, she has not had that. She had a bad relationship, glad he's gone, and she's just on her own. So she's independent. She's in her 20s. She is starting a thriving business, and she's just fun.
Well, thank
But
you for that. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, we want to hear it. Will you read a few
yes.
pages
So
to us?
the book that's featured in here is The Great Gatsby, which you'll learn on the first page. Allie, I love The Great Gatsby, my best friend Tegan Potts said as she did a two-step through Feast for the Eyes, the bookshop she'd recently inherited from her Aunt Marigold. Love, love, love it. Glad to hear it. I just finished straightening up the reading nook located at the back left of the store because the beanbags and comfy chairs had all been askew. Now I was intent on organizing the items on the pegboard behind the sales counter. That was where we posted notes to one another like, "Out of The Mystery of the Blue Train," or "Need 3 copies of The Diva Goes Overboard." Once the issues were handled, the notes were tossed in the trash. I love history. She skirted the year-round book tree decorated with miniature book ornaments and disappeared down the mystery aisle to pull books from the shelves. Though the bookshop wasn't huge, her voice became muffled. "And the glamour. What about the story?" I teased. "The story's good." Though my full-time career was working as a caterer and baker, delivering tasty treats to the good people of Bramblewood, I had let me just tell you, Bramblewood is a small community outside of Asheville, and it's fictional. Good people of Bramblewood, I had inherited a small percentage of the bookstore, so I helped out my pal whenever my baking and deliveries were done. The tragedy of Marigold's demise still brought tears to my eyes. She had been like a beloved aunt to me, but at least her murderer had been caught and imprisoned, the silver lining in an otherwise sad tale. Tegan reemerged with a stack of books, which she deposited on the sales counter, already overflowing with others. On Sundays, before the bookshop opened, she was adamant about gathering all the pre-ordered titles. "The story is excellent. When it comes to painting a picture of a tragic hero," Tegan spread her arms wide, which made the bat wings of her oversized anime shirt expand. She reminded me of a bird about to take flight, a very tiny bird. She was a good 3 inches shorter than me. "After all, Gatsby brings about his own downfall." True. I began to tag the books using the list Tegan had prepared. Fitzgerald tried to portray Gatsby as a perfect person, but his imperfections were clearly evident. And let's face it, Gatsby shouldn't have cared for Daisy so much. He shouldn't have built his whole world around the possibility of her return. But he believed she couldn't possibly love her husband and would come running back to him because he was so rich. A man's wealth wasn't a good enough reason for a woman to fall for him. Character mattered, as did kindness.
Thank you so much. All right, Daryl, I've got more questions and I'm going to ask for more secret stuff too. So I'm going to come back to you. But now I'm going to move on to Lisa. Lisa Devine is the acclaimed author of the Kiki, and I'm saying that right, Kiki, right?
Yes.
Kiki McCoy mystery series and the YA series Drama High. She is an award-winning novelist whose work has been praised by Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, Essence, Ebony, and more. A former teacher in the Los Angeles Unified School District, she holds an MA from UCLA in African American Studies and Educational Psychology and served as a visiting scholar at UCLA's Center for the Study of Women. She also holds an MA and MHA from Clayton State University in Atlanta, and she currently lives in Atlanta, Georgia with her family. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you.
Lost in the Garden of Eve releases on October 28th. It is book 2 in her Kiki McCoy mystery series following an epitaph for Jezebel, about which, I was going to say, which was an Amazon editor's pick, about which Amazon Book Review says, forget titillation, Divine is writing on the fault lines of social justice, race, sex workers, and law enforcement, and it makes for an edgy, pacey read. And an early Goodreads reviewer calls Lost in the Garden of Eve a mirror held up to the world we live in right now. So I can't wait to hear more about this. Please, Lisa, tell us about the book.
Well, Tosca, thank you so much. As a matter of fact, can you send me those reviews? I didn't
Sure,
read them.
they're right on Goodreads. I didn't have to search very hard.
I was like, wait a minute, hold on, wait a minute. I'm wondering. No, thank you so much for having me on the show. I'm so delighted to be here with all of the esteemed authors, and I just love the whole, renegade, rogue, renaissance. I love it. So thank you so much for having me. Yes, actually, so funny enough, you all are talking about food, and I know we had to send a recipe in. So the recipe is from An Epitaph for Jezebel. It's from the first book. I don't know if you can see it. There you go. An Epitaph for Jezebel. So it's Honey Mama's sweet potato biscuits. And I'm going to tell you why it's important, right? I think a lot of what we do as people, just as human beings throughout history, is we share our culture through our food. If we can't communicate with somebody, you can offer them tea, or you can offer them bread, or you can offer them, just whatever you have in your home. And it makes a huge difference. It's a conversation starter. And I also think it's an important piece for understanding that like meets like. Mm-hmm. So it's just the process of the giving and the process of the offering that opens up the conversation for people to have discussions about difficult situations. My books are based my entire writing career, which has been now, it spans over, I don't even want to age myself, but almost 3 decades. It has been always premised from a place of social justice, just because I was that young Black girl who grew up in Compton, went to school in Redondo Beach, ended up at UCLA, was mislabeled a misplaced hood rat, ended up obtaining 2 degrees from UCLA, ended up moving on, doing my own thing. I've published now over the past few years, it's been 24 novels, I believe. And all of them are about young Black women who are not only trying to find themselves or working on their own sustainability in society and who they are and identifying with the society they happen to be in, but it also has to deal with the injustice of what happens when you're forgotten, or when you fall through the cracks, or just being a young person of color, in particular, a young woman of color, or an LGBTQ plus member of society of color, or just whatever you happen to be that is other. And so in my series, I deal with Kiki McCoy, who is a reporter who used to be a stripper, and it didn't start off that way, but that is the way that it is. And that's what happened to her. She had some trauma that happened to her younger. You have to read the books to find out about that. But the point is that, yes, ma'am, she went from the pole to the pen, and really from the pen to the pole, because she always loved reading. She was an avid reader. Her father would, purchase the Atlanta Journal-Constitution on Sundays. And now she works for the Metro Journal, which is fictional. Indian Springs, Georgia is where it primarily takes place, which is about 50 miles outside of Atlanta, Georgia. The reason that place is so special to me is one of the first places that I had my writers conference back in, I forget, 2008 or 2009. And it was via Barnes and Noble. And it just made me feel humbled that I was the only Black person. I was the only Black author, and it was a plantation, and it was the South. And it happened to have been a brothel, and it happened to be on, massive. And I was just like, okay, there's too much going on. So I started writing this series back then.
Wow.
And it finally came to light. We have so many murders here. And I'm from Compton, California, like I said before, we have them there too. But here in Georgia, they started this series on the unsolved murders of Atlanta. So the unsolved children's murders of Atlanta, which a lot of them were 13, 14, 15-year-old girls who had been sex trafficked, some of which who had been mothers and their children had been stolen or had been sold or they'd been aborted. The excerpt I'm going to read to you is from Lost in the Garden of Eve, which of course is the one you said is coming out next week. Woo-hoo. And just bringing light to the fact that these are real stories. So you can have levity, you can have girlfriendhood, you can have sisterhood, you can have all of those things. There's empowerment in choosing your path. There's empowerment in choosing to own a path or a career that was demonized. And so that's why all my books are based off the bad gals of the Bible. So it's all the women of color of the Bible who come from these different places who have been demonized. And so we have Jezebel, the first one, right? Now we have Eve, the second one. We're going to Lot's wife for the third one. And so we just keep going until we get to Delilah with Samson's hair. Okay, because if he was that strong, how she cut off his hair? Anyway, so
Inquiring minds do want to know.
inquiring minds have questions, I'm just saying. But so I'm going to be reading from Lost in the Garden of Eve, which again comes out October 28th, 2025 from Kensington Publishing. I was one of those young women who had to wear reading glasses at a very young age. I've been wearing glasses for a very long time, so I'm going to put those right back on. All right, so here we go. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I swear on this? Is this an adult?
This is adult, so
okay. So I'm very adult in this
written.
book. Yes, I have young adults, but this is adult. Okay, so I'm just gonna read it the way it's in the book, so y'all not shocked when you buy the book. All right, ladies, you got 1 second to tell me how the fuck you know our names and where we live before I exercise my Second Amendment rights. My apologies, the lady says, removing her dark sunglasses to reveal a set of piercing blue eyes. I've only seen one other person like that, and it was my first private client. I hate my mom for hooking me up with C to get more work. That man was weird as fuck. I hope to God I never have to see him again. My name's Mary Adams. We have a mutual, shall we say, associate in common, she says, and now I know she's talking about C. No one ever really knows what to call Coverture, or C as she's more commonly known. She's a dancer that pimps out other dancers, plain and simple. Call her a pimp, that's what I call her. Funny, my mom says, slowly eyeing the stranger up and down. Ain't no associates of mine said nothing about a late night visit. Our business is of a delicate nature, you see, she says, looking at my stomach. I don't know why, but I instinctively feel the need to cover my midsection. I want to help your child keep the baby. We're a very religious family and, well, abortion is just not an option. An option for who? My mom says, leaning on the open front door. You ain't the one missing work to pop out another mouth to feed. Ain't that right, Mocha? I remained seated at the table, shocked by the change in fortune. Just a moment ago, I was scared of confronting my mother in the morning because I don't want to lose another baby. Now this woman just might be the answer to my prayers. But still, there's something off about her that I just can't put my finger on. It doesn't matter. Anything's got to be better than staying here another day. Like I said, I want to help. When we saw what happened at the clinic earlier, and I learned that your daughter was almost a victim, I just knew that we had to help. My family will take care of all the medical expenses as well as provide a monthly allowance throughout the pregnancy. We'll even take the baby off your hands as soon as he's born, if that's what you want. He, I asked, sure that she's a girl, even if my mama won't let me keep her. What if it's a girl? Oh, hush now, Miss Adams says, evading the question. No need to worry about the gender now. The baby has to get here safe and sound first. We'll worry about the rest later. She turns to my mother, her eyes slit. So, Denise, do we have a deal? Do I have a say? Shut up, Mocha, my mom says, seriously thinking this stranger's offer over. If C's involved, it definitely means that money is on the table, and my mom's never wanted to say no to a payday, especially not off my back. Deal. This white lady, whoever she is, just might be a godsend. But just like the one teacher who told me to pray, who told me she'd pray for me and my baby's soul before I left school for the last time, they actually kind of smell alike, like talcum powder and soap. Who knows? Maybe she's the answer to my baby's prayers. All the other babies disappeared right after I gave birth. Mama never told me what happened to them, just that they went to a better place, whatever that means. I just know that this baby wants to live, and I can feel it. I feel she'll be my first. Well, not really, but the first one I get to hold, to nurse like my home economics teacher taught me about, to love like my mama never loved me. I always feel like a burden. I never want my baby to feel like that. Whenever we visit the city and the clinic like we did this morning, they have brochures for safe houses for young mothers with babies. I'll go to one of those places if this arrangement with Miss Adams doesn't work out. Hell, it actually sounds like this lady might be from one of those types of homes. I've been praying, just like the lady in the nurse's office told me to do, just like the lady at the clinic said, just like the signs and the angry protesters who throw things in my face every time my mama takes me outside for a visit. What they don't know, they don't understand is that, like them, I want to save my babies too. I want the choice to keep them, but that's never been up to me, still isn't. My mama makes that decision for me every single time. She's never asked me what I want. This time will be different though. I'm not letting her force me into an abortion or take my baby away from me. If it dies in my arms, then so be it. She should be with her mother who loves her, not the grandmother who sees her as a problem to get rid of, like trash overflowing on a Sunday afternoon. Not this time. I want my baby girl. And if this woman can help me keep her, then I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make that happen. I've lost as many babies as I've aborted and given birth to 3 babies I never saw again. I'll fight whoever I have to, including Jesus, the devil, and my mama if need be, to keep her. This time, they can't have my baby girl.
Wow. Thank you, Lisa. All right, Lisa, I'm going to come back to you and I'm going to ask for secret stuff. But first, I'm going to move on to Kate and welcome Kate Belli.
Thank
Kate
you. I'm
Belli.
so glad to be here. Sorry.
Hello, are you okay? There you are. Okay, Kate Belli holds a PhD in art history, and this goes very well with her new release, and is a gallery director and faculty member at a liberal arts college in central Pennsylvania. When not writing, Kate satisfies her wanderlust by traveling with her husband and son as often as possible, touring museums and sampling local food. I think there's a lot of like food themes happening here. She is also an avid runner, having completed several marathons and a yoga teacher. Welcome, Kate. And Kate's newest is The Gallery Assistant, which released last week, I believe, on October 14th.
That's right.
Julie Clark, New York Times bestselling author of The Ghostwriter, calls it a haunting, razor-sharp mystery with an unforgettable protagonist and a plot that spirals into ever deeper layers of intrigue. So, Kate, welcome, and please tell us about The Gallery Assistant.
Well, thank you very much. I'm so glad to be here. Yes, so this book is my first contemporary-ish thriller before I had written a series of historical mysteries set in the Gilded Age. This book is set in 2001 New York City in the months just post 9/11, so November and December 2001, and it follows our titular gallery assistant who is suffering from PTSD and trauma related to 9/11. This is not a surprise. I'm not spoiling anything. It's really early in the book we find that out, that she is suffering from some memory loss related to this PTSD. And she comes into work one day after having spent the previous evening at a pretty wild party at the painter, the newest painter that the gallery has acquired at that woman's loft, to find out that that painter has been murdered. And our gallery assistant, Chloe, was the last person to leave the party, and she has no memory of how she got home. And everything spirals kind of from there. All kinds of things start happening, and she has to figure out if she's really living in a conspiracy in a time that feels like everything is a conspiracy, or, you know, what's truth and what's fiction.
Mm-hmm. And where did the idea for the gallery assistant come from? Or how did this germinate?
It really came from the setting. I was looking for just an idea for my next thriller. I wrote, after my historical mysteries, I wanted to move into thriller, and I wrote a thriller that, a destination wedding thriller that I eventually put in a drawer. And so I was looking for the next one, and I just was really intrigued by this time period. It's a time period, I don't know if this is a secret, that maybe one of my secrets, that I lived through. I lived in New York, from the late 90s through sort of 2014 or so. And so I remember that very vividly, that almost dystopian feeling of New York City in that just post 9/11 moment when everything was kind of upside down and topsy-turvy. And I was that age. I was a young person in my mid-late 20s and trying to figure out my life. And then I had to do it in basically a place that suddenly felt like a war zone. And so I just felt like that would be a really interesting backdrop for a thriller. And again, what would happen in a time that felt like that if you maybe unwittingly became embroiled in sort of an actual, again, conspiracy? Like how could that unfold? So that's where it came from.
All right. Well, will you read to us, Kate?
Yes. And I thought I would just begin at the beginning because there's a lot of twists and turns. So I don't want to spoil anything. So I'm just going to start right at the beginning with chapter 1, where we are in Williamsburg, Brooklyn, mid-November 2001. How did I get home last night? The thought hit, abrupt and bracing, along with the near fire hose pressure stream of scalding water from the shower head above. I jumped out of the way, reaching to adjust the temperature, though it didn't do much good. The pipes were as old as the rest of the building and finicky. The water was either near boiling or icy cold. I managed to find a tolerable warmth and scrub myself quickly, trying to avoid the messy mound of hair piled on the top of my head. I was already so late for work. There was no time to wash and dry it, and it was too cold out to let it air dry. The foul scent of cigarette smoke mixed with the steam from the shower, intensifying it. Funny how I love the taste of cigarettes so much, but the later smell on my clothes and in my hair was disgusting. How did I get home? I paused, taking an extra moment I didn't have to let the water blast my shoulders, and gingerly pressed my lips with my damp fingertips. They stung slightly. The rest of me seemed fine, other than the usual symptoms of a raging hangover. My stomach roiled slightly at every movement. My head pounded in a steady, sickening rhythm. I placed my hands against the slick tile wall and rested my forehead between them for a beat, mentally scanning the rest of my body, feeling if the water stung anywhere in particular, if I had any unusual aches or pains. Nothing. Chloe. I started at the unexpected voice, then poked my head out from the shower curtain. My roommate, Vic, was barely visible in the steam, but I could still make out his frown. You said to make sure you were out after 5 minutes. It's been 7. He took a deep drink from the chipped I Heart New York mug we fought over. It's already 9 o'clock. Is that coffee? I was pretty sure it wasn't, but hope sprung eternal. Chai, you were going to get coffee yesterday, remember? Forgot, I guess. Right. I had planned to pick up a can of Bustelo after work on my way to Inga's party, but had stopped at Rosemary's Tavern for a beer instead. One beer had turned into a few, and I'd wound up arriving at the party close to 10. An image emerged. Vic with his arm slung around Ben in a haze of smoke, his head thrown back and laughing. Poof, there and gone. How late did we stay? I can't remember. I injected a little laugh into the question. Silly Chloe drank so much she can't remember getting home. I turned off the water and stuck my arm around the curtain. I waited for a response, which was slow in coming. A towel arrived before an answer. Benny and I left around 1, he said cautiously. Ben was Vic's boyfriend. I dried myself with a towel. It was one of a set of 2 I'd had since my freshman year of college, a pale green and white striped Laura Ashley that was pretty threadbare by now. I don't know what time you got back, Vic continued. Well, I made it home somehow. I infused as much nonchalance into the statement as I could. Vic stepped out of the bathroom as I swept the curtain back, towel wrapped around me. He stayed in the hallway, sipping his chai and studying me over the rim of the mug. What is it? He shook his head. Nothing. You're going to be so late. The price we pay, I said. What a party, huh? Yep, what a party. You were getting awfully friendly with some guy when we left, he said with a shrug. I froze for a second, then reached for my body lotion. We offered you a ride, but you didn't want to leave. I don't blame you. He was cute. Some guy? What guy? I tried to remember, but nothing came up blank. I'd woken up naked, but that was indicative of nothing because I usually slept naked. Was Benny still here? He's been at work for an hour already. Okay, it's 9:10 now. Big turn, businesslike toward the kitchen. Want some chai? Nope, thanks though. The smell of the spices coming from Vic's mug was making my stomach turn even more. What I really needed was a giant icy fountain Coke and a greasy bodega egg sandwich. I headed off to get dressed, lotion in hand, and tried to calculate if I'd have enough time to pick up breakfast. Wasn't looking good. I closed the door and paused, surveying my room. Everything seemed in its usual place. The salvaged kitchen chair piled high with clothes, the old dining table I'd borrowed from an ex and never given back that I used as a desk. My ancient Mac computer sat atop it, surrounded by coffee cups rimmed with dried residue, prompting the immediate thought, oh, I need to soak those, even though I knew I wouldn't. My bed was so rumpled, it was impossible to tell if I'd had a guest or not. Our tabby Groucho was curled up in the middle of it, right in the warm spot where my sleeping body had been less than 30 minutes ago. The stack of books off to the side wasn't disturbed, nor was my dresser top full of knickknacks. The fading half stubs of concert tickets, one rainbow striped glove missing its mate, the bottle of Chanel No. 5 I hoarded and only wore on special occasions. Nothing was different from the day before. So why did everything feel so off? I pushed open the cheap folding closet door, shoved in the back behind a tangle of summer shoes. I could just make out one corner of the blue-gray archival box. It looked undisturbed, resting as always under a wrinkled plastic bag containing what had once been my best dress. I swallowed hard and pulled the towel tighter around myself. 9:16, Vic's voice floated through the door, full of disapproval.
Thank you so much. Okay, I hear the dun 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 at the end of each of these snippets. So thank you so much. Well, let's start round two. Let's go to Jenny. That's like a game show. Jenny. So Jenny shared a recipe with us for super easy mock s'mores that I can totally get behind because there's no fire required. And the recipe is on our website, and we have several recipes on there from tonight's session. So please be sure and go there, roguewomenwriters.com, I believe, and check it out. Jenny, she also shared that her psychologist sleuth Arles doesn't drink, but she did get a cup of tea from her love interest Dan at just the right time. So do you want to give us a little bit of context around that, or would that give anything away?
No, I don't think it's a spoiler. Let's see. So Arles has a background of trauma, and she never thought that she would have a relationship or a love in her life. And in the first novel, she encounters Dan it's a chance encounter. And although she is not, I don't know, not what I would call a prime cat, she really sees past her tough exterior and gives her something she never expected to have. And yeah, he reappears in the second book. So
Okay.
some of the reviewers seem to find Dan a hot guy.
I love it. And is there any special research that came along for this book? Any specialized, there's always some rabbit trail, right? So is there anything especially interesting that you had to dive into?
Well, I mean, so one of the things about the Arles Shepherd series is it's really neat because I practiced as a psychotherapist for 15 years. So a lot of it just like comes back and it feels like a second skin kind of thing. But for the Fairest, which involves an actor and an influencer, I did have to do a fair amount. And it's funny, DARYL and I go way back, and I totally forgot that I should have reached out to DARYL about the acting background. So I did. I had to, speak to some people in that world and speak to my Gen Z kids who know the influencing world and that kind of thing.
Wonderful. And then we had a question from Facebook from Renee who wants to know what everyone's reading. So Jenny, what have you been reading, or what's next on your TBR?
Grab it. It's called The High Season, and it's by a British novelist. Her name is escaping me, but The High Season, it's really good so far.
Fabulous. All right. Thank you very much. I'll be back. All right, Daryl. Daryl's main character, Alley Cat, prefers beer from fictional faves Ollie's Pale Ale or an Audrey Hopburn, and also loves fries and burgers, which I love too. As for Daryl, Daryl prefers wine paired with cheddar cheese, like the non-fictional Kerrygold Dubliner cheddar or Beecher's extra-aged flagship cheddar. By the way, Daryl has provided a delicious looking grilled cheese sandwich recipe, once again, over at Rogue Women Writers. And it's got a few surprise ingredients that are perfect for this time of year, actually. So be sure and check that out. Daryl, the literary dining party in your book is based on The Great Gatsby. You mentioned earlier. Why did you choose that theme? And was there any, you spoke a little bit to some of the research you did before, but was there like anything surprising that you just didn't anticipate that you would be spending time on?
Yes, I'm very excited about this. When I was doing The Great Gatsby, number one, I loved the book. And it was one of those wonderful things to, again, like I said, that I did with Pride and Prejudice. I got to dive into this, tear it apart, look at all the reasons, really understand Daisy where I didn't understand her before, to get to these different characters. But the surprising thing was I was in New York for Thriller Fest last year when I was finishing this off, and I decided not to go to the banquet. I decided I would just go and see if I can get a single ticket to a Broadway show. And what was playing? The Great Gatsby, the musical. And I
Oh,
didn't know. So I went and
wow.
I got a ticket and it was amazing. And the singing was great. But the set was fabulous and the costumes were fabulous. And it really sort of anchored me in what I was doing, because I was doing all the research on the costumes and I was researching all the food of the Roaring Twenties. Did you know that pasta pomodoro didn't become popular in the United States until then? And that's because all of a sudden it was very international to eat pasta. And orange juice became very popular because it could be carted from all the way across the country and not spoil. So there were things that I was learning, and I find it very intriguing and fun to keep educating myself as I'm writing, and it informs my character, but it informs me. And so I find that I'm not getting stupid while I write, which is good.
And Daryl,
Jenny
what
and
are
I
you?
do go
Yeah.
way back. We go back to a number of conferences and bookstores, and I was reading all her suspense when she was just first starting, and I love them, all your suspense, you know that. And I love Arles. I've read Arles. I don't have book 2 yet, so I'm looking forward to it. But it was a wonderful twist in there.
What are you reading right now, Daryl?
Oh,
What's on your
um,
nightstand?
yeah. Oh, on my nightstand is a book by Charlie Donlea, and I can't remember the name right now. Long Time Gone, Long Something Gone.
Thing like
Um,
that? Okay.
yeah, and it's really good. So I'm listening to it. I drive out to my son who's out in Oxnard to see my grandbaby. And so when I'll listen for an hour each direction, and it's a great way to pass the time. I get a lot more books read by also doing audiobooks. I'm also reading all the short stories of Sherlock Holmes right now. So
Oh, wow.
that's
Oh,
sort of a challenge. I'm working myself through the book, and chapter by chapter by chapter. I'm like, didn't I read this before? Did I read this before? And I really am wondering if I read them in high school. So, but it's
possible,
fun.
but always worth a second read or a second listen.
Yeah,
So,
Sherlock Holmes is one of those amazing characters, like a Murder, She Wrote, Jessica Fletcher. They find that one little clue that turns everything around. And
yeah.
I've tried to emulate that in my writing, play fair with the readers, but in a mystery, in a whodunit, which is what my cozy mysteries are. Not thrillers. They're not thrillers. I don't do that with my thrillers, but in my cozy mysteries, I really do try to play fair with all the clues that I set. So when you get to the one that triggers it, it's like, oh, I knew that had to be, something that I was supposed to pay attention to. So I like that.
All right. Lisa's main character, Kiki, loves Honey Mama sweet potato biscuits, which we heard about from Lisa. That recipe also is on the Rogue Women Writers website. Sounds delicious. It only has 6 ingredients plus honey for serving. And so I think we can all do
Absolutely.
that. And now I'm starving because it is dinner time here. Lisa, any new, special, interesting, unexpected research for Lost in the Garden of Eve?
Well, all of my books are heavily researched, and I do on the ground research. So when I'm talking about the strip clubs, I actually did amateur night. I went in, I was behind the scenes, got the smells, the taste, saw the babies, the kids, the people selling clothing, all the way down to journalism, making sure I was in the mix, working on the street with the person who was doing the crime journalism, and starting off with epitaphs, which is why the first book is named Epitaph, because that is really where people start in the grunt. They write obituaries and, you know, especially celebrity obituaries. And so one of the things I love about this series is that it all starts with Honey Mama and the love for cooking and the love for baking. All of her women, all of the women who choose to be independent owners with her as strippers for themselves, she names them sweet things. Couverture, dulce, mocha, monaca. I mean, just love, brandy, you know what I mean? All the things that you love to engulf and engage and eat, and, you know, just the sweet smells of life. And so I think, like I said before, tying it kind of back up, I think that's very important. And so for this one in particular, I want everyone to know that Mocha was only 14 when I read that part of the book. She had already had 3 children. She had already been through a lot. She was going to, and the book begins with her going through more. Okay. Monaca, who is in an epitaph for Jezebel, and they're also named for their cultural sweets, you know, so she's half Japanese and half Black. And so delicate, beautiful flower, just a pastry. And so I'm a baker, if you haven't noticed that, but I'm a baker at home. I bake from my family. You know what I mean? I bake here. I don't, but I did, as a single mother for a long time, tea cakes. And that's why you see the biscuits, sweet potato pie. I mean, those were the things I made in the most. And the fall, which is now, is a perfect time for baking. And so I do hope you guys enjoy the recipe. If you have any questions, please comment, lisadevine.com. I am here. But I'm always doing research for my books. I'm already researching the next book, The Salty Pillar, and just how jealousy and envy and all of that can work into the murder mystery, and how, unfortunately, oh, bless you. God bless you. I don't know.
I meant to turn. I'm sorry. I'm muting.
It's okay. It's okay. We're human. What? It's okay. Hi, Daryl. How you doing? It's us. It's just me and you. I don't know what happened. It's just me and you.
Did everybody else?
Oh, there it is. Okay.
I'm here. All right, Lisa, what are you reading? What's on your nightstand right now?
Exactly. So that's what I was going to say. So I'm always in the midst of reading new and old. So I just finished reviewing The Mill City Murders, which is by Trisha Blanchett, who actually has a site. Hold on. What is the name of the site? I'm going to look it up. AmightyBlaze.com. So I'm always reading young and upcoming authors. Trisha Blanchett just actually sold with her agent, and I did the blurb for that book series that's coming up, and it's an amazing series about the Mill City murders in a whole different part of the world than I'm from. I think it's Michigan or something. Amazing. The cat is the main story. I also am always reading Zora Neale Hurston, Octavia Butler. I really want to implore everyone here on this call. I know that you love The Great Gatsby. I know that you love reading about all the classics that we read, Pride and Prejudice, Shakespeare, reading all the things that we had to read as English majors in the 1980s and 90s. Please read more. A lot of us are not getting book deals. A lot of us are not getting the shine that we deserve or need, or I don't know what the word would be, but I always thought I would be the Black Jessica Fletcher. Or seriously, I watch Murder, She Wrote every night, without fail, on my TV. And I think it's interesting that we can watch everything, but everything can't watch us. And so I implore you to reach outside of your comfort zone, reach outside of that box. I mean, one of my favorite series right now that's on TV that I've been reading forever is the Trent, I forget, Will Trent series by Karen Slaughter. I've read every single one of those books probably twice, listened to them on Audible, just like you say. I have a daughter who lives in DC. I have a son who's stationed right now in Trenton. He's in the Air Force, not getting paid, bless his heart, but he's working 12-hour days, you know. I read my books and I listen to my books, and I'm an avid reader, avid supporter. And so I read like there's no tomorrow. The Dublin Murders, I don't know if you've ever heard of that series, but I like foreign books as well. Read outside of your comfort zone. Read outside of the classics. Read outside of the genre. There's so many new writers who are out here just writing for the love of the pen
Thank
and
you.
writing for all of that. So I implore people, I'm sorry, to read outside of their comfort zone.
Fabulous. Thank you, Lisa. I'm going to go on to Kate. Kate's favorite drink is a Cosmo. The martini glass must be filled to the brim and in danger of spilling and getting sticky. And is there any other way to have a proper Cosmo? I think not.
No.
And Kate's favorite snack is hot French fries from the local diner. Hot, greasy, salty. I'm so hungry right now.
So
What
those are actually Chloe, my character's favorite drink.
Oh,
and
Chloe,
snack.
it's your characters.
So I'm
Okay.
sorry, I didn't submit a recipe because our girl Chloe doesn't cook. She's,
Oh, well,
you know,
there are
yes,
those
I did
too.
make a Cosmo for this. And
Oh,
yeah,
you did.
this was the drink of, as you all remember, I'm sure, like the late 90s, early 2000s.
Oh, yes.
You did have it. You
That
left it
is the
sticky. And then you have to have something to soak up the booze. No, I actually don't, this is a virgin one. I don't drink anymore, but no, so I submitted Chloe's
It
favorite.
looks good.
It's her drink and snack of choice.
Well, what fun special research did the gallery assistant entail? So much of the story is already kind of in your wheelhouse, but what interesting new different thing did you have to dive into?
Well, you know, we all again lived through 9/11, and I wanted to be very sensitive when telling that part of the book and not sensationalize it at all, but really focus on the survivor's story. So again, this is not a spoiler, but Chloe is at ground zero. She survives one of the towers falling, so, you know, gets out right before it falls. So I read a lot of you know, the internet was in its infancy, but things last forever. Even so, a lot of, you know, survivor accounts from like old blog posts and things from 2001 and 2002 that people were writing about that, and a lot of newspaper accounts from that era. So again, even though it's like recent history, it was still history. And I am a historian by art historian, but I lean heavily onto the historian side. And my previous books were, again, clearly, you know, over 100-year-old historicals that involved a lot more sort of intensive research. But this was some more of like reminding myself of like what we wore and what music we listened to, and really trying to immerse the reader back into that world, which for some of us is familiar, and for, you know, some people, I teach college students and it's just history to them. They have no living memory of any of that.
Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. Yeah. What, oh, I was going to ask you, I was going back, you know, when you talk about 9/11, instantly, those of us who were alive always think of where we were and what was going on. So my mind just went there. What is on your nightstand, Kate? What are you reading right now?
So just literally last night, I finished the new Lisa Gardner Kiss Her Goodbye in the Frankie Elkins series, which I love that series. And this one was just as good. And now I started, took a left turn into more literary fiction, and I'm reading Sally Rooney, another Irish author. And Lisa, I love the Dublin Murders. That is like the ton of French. It's an instant buy for me, anything she writes. But yeah, so Intermezzo is the book I am reading now that I just started.
Who's that by?
Sally Rooney.
Sally Rooney. All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, Lisa Gardner is a friend of our show. So yes, and a good personal friend as well. Well, thank you for that. Well, we are just landing perfectly right here. I want to thank all of our guests, Jenny Milchman, DARYL Wood-Gerber, Lisa Devine, and Kate Belli, for this wonderful event. I want to congratulate you all on your new and upcoming releases. So exciting every single time. We do have some winners, but we may have to announce those to come. But we do have drawings for that. And I want to remind everybody that each of these books that we've been talking about tonight by our guest authors is available anywhere books are sold. We hope that you will go pick up a copy. We hope that you will also request these books from your library. And especially now that you've met these authors personally and had the chance to hear from them and to hear them read their own work, which is always such a treat. I hope you'll join us at our next Rogue Reads next month for another stellar lineup on November 17th as we talk with authors Heather Gudenkoff, Ellen Byron, Valerie Wilson Wesley, and Marshall Karp. So we are so excited to welcome these guests next month. And in the meantime, thank you, everybody. Thank you, authors, for joining us. Thank you, listeners, everyone on Facebook and on YouTube. for joining us as well. It's
Thank
been
you.
a wonderful
Thank
evening.
you, Tosca.
And
You're
now we're
great.
all
Thank you,
hungry.
Tosca. It's been a yes, and we're all hungry and gonna go feed our dogs as well. But it was amazing. Amazing.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night, everybody.
Good
Good
night.
Good
Thank
night.
you,
Thank you
Lisa,
so
too,
much
for
for having
inviting.
us.